Okay, so now we are going to practice our fix-up strategies using this biography that I think you're going to really like called Man-Fish, a story of Jacques Cousteau. Once upon a time in France. Now this is the introduction. A baby boy was born under the summer sun. His parents named him Jacques. As he grew, Jacques fell in love with the sea, dreamed of breathing beneath the waves and swimming as gracefully as a fish. In fact, he longed to become a man-fish. Jacques Cousteau grew up to become a champion of the seas and one of the best-known oceanographers in the world. This lovely biography, poetic text, and gorgeous paintings come together to create a portrait of Cousteau that is magical as it is inspiring. Bubbles rising through the silence of the sea, silvery beads. Now I was able to solve that because I saw a word in there that I knew and I could break it into chunks. Silver, and I know why at the end usually says E, silvery. Silvery beads of breath from a man deep, deep down in a strange and shimmering ocean land of swaying plants and fantastic creations, a man-fish swimming, diving into the unknown, exploring the underwater that no one had ever seen and no one ever could have Now this word's tricky. I see some parts I know here. So I see ED at the end. You know, sometimes that says T, sometimes it says D. Okay, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to see if I can figure it out using this sentence. And no one ever could have wait a second. G can also say J. Imagined. And no one ever could have imagined. Now our story starts many years before in France with a little baby boy born under the summer sun. His parents named him Jacques. From the very beginning, little Jacques loved the water, the way it felt in his hands, his face, his body, and water made him wonder. He wondered why ships floated, why he floated, and why rocks sank. One day, Jacques read a story about a man who hid underwater by breathing through a long tube. Jacques tried it and discovered it was impossible. He dreamed that someday he would be able to breathe underwater for real. At night, Jacques dreamed that he could fly with the birds among the clouds with his arms stretched out like wings. This seems to be an important word, breathe. I've seen it quite a few times in this book. And this picture is a little puzzling because you can tell it's him imagining. He's flying, but he's also with fish and birds, which aren't usually in the same place. Jacques spent his days playing, experimenting, and creating. He wrote little books that he illustrated with his own drawings, and he was fascinated by machines. He studied blueprints and built a model of a crane that was as tall as he was and actually worked. Now blueprints are the way that people used to draw things by hand. My dad was an engineer, and then when he would make big copies of these drawings, they were all blue instead of it being black ink, and that's why they called them blueprints. You can see them in the picture too. Movies fascinated Jacques too. He wanted to know how they were made, how the cameras worked, and how chemicals made pictures appear on the film. Jacques saved his allowance penny by penny until he had enough to buy a small home movie camera. First thing he did was take it apart and put it back together. Then he began to film everything around him. He put his brother, cousins, parents, and friends in his movies. He dressed up as this is the next word that appears. Never seen this one before, but I see some parts I might know. and see, now that I've slid through the sounds. I found this part that I know. Let me see if I can make sense of it, the words around it. He dressed up as a villain with a painted on mustache. Ah, I know that sometimes there's bad guys in a movie. They're called villains. It's a villain. He dressed up as villain with a painted on mustache. He made some villainous films. Describes a film that would have some villains in it. Jacques was always the star, the director and the writer, usually the cameraman. The 4 minutes.
Oh,